I found this really old picture of my old like TBR pile before my like book buying issue really became a fucking thing. It was so funny to me for multiple reasons. Number one, I'm a fucking hoarder now. I have so many unread books. It's a big issue in my life. I talk about it a lot. It's basically my whole personality at this point. Number two, it's kind of cute because my bookshelves are empty, and again, I have issues now. But number three, which is basically what the crux of this is about, it was really funny to see what kind of books I was just like grabbing then, and it was also funny to see, well, surprising mainly for me, to see how many books I had read out of that stack. I think I had read 99% of it. Kind of impressive for me. So I thought it would be really fun to choose 3 of the books that have been on my TBR the longest. 3 of the books I can see in that photo. Oh, I didn't make room for the photo, did I? Photo. Thought it'd be fun to spend the next week or so reading a couple of the oldest books on my TBR. Number 1, we've got The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo by Stieg Larsson. I understand this is a thriller. I understand there's a lot of violence against women, but like that's the point. It's not just there for fun. So that's number 1. Number 2, we've got Prince of Mist by Carlos Ruiz. I have no idea what this is about. It is a YA fantasy. That is all I know. I'm like 99% sure I got this at a fucking Scholastic book fair in middle school, which says a lot about how long I've been holding on to this and never picked it up, even though it's so small and the writing's so big. And then last on the list, of course, is a fucking Stephen King. Why did I keep cursing today? Rose Matter. No idea what this one's about either, but I have this nice old like hardcover edition. When I find out what these books are about, I'll let you know. But that is this week's agenda. I think I'm gonna start with The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, because this book was incredibly hyped at the time. I think I just like found a random mass market at some point and grabbed it. And I'm excited to see what all the hype is truly about. I'm a little embarrassing. I'm like a lot embarrassing, to be honest. First book done, let's talk. Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. This book follows the main character named Michael. I can't believe I almost forgot that. That's embarrassing. It's just such a boring name. Anyway, follows the main character named Michael, who is hired by one of the wealthiest families in Sweden to solve the mystery of a 16-year-old girl's disappearance that happened 40 years ago. It also follows another main character, Elizabeth, who is a private investigator, and eventually she ends up just thrown into this as well. I am not a big mystery or thriller person. I find them kind of boring. I think the only reason this was on my TBR in the first place is because this book was insanely popular when it came out. I didn't buy this. My sister bought it. When she was getting rid of books, I grabbed it, and it has been on my shelf for fucking years. However, I see why it was so popular. Like, I did really enjoy this. I wasn't shocked by the ending or anything, but I really enjoyed seeing the mystery unfold and seeing what happened. In general, I really enjoyed like the commentary in this book on misogyny. First of all, I do wish that they had kept the original name, Men Who Hate Women. America sucks. We shouldn't have changed this. But again, I did enjoy the commentary in general. I feel like some of the violence against women in this book wasn't completely necessary, but again, that could also just be a remnant of how this conversation has changed in the greater like societal consciousness. When this book came out, sexual assault against women wasn't as frequently discussed, so I can give it a pass. I also did really like the setting of like a small Swedish village, well, island. I thought it was really cool, especially for the mystery. The fact that the only road into the island was shut down when the disappearance happened was really cool, and it gave like the story a fun twist. And again, just as a setting, it was really cozy and I liked that. I ended up giving this book 3.5 stars, closer to 4, I'd say. I really enjoyed it. I was really surprised by how much I enjoyed it, given that this isn't my favorite type of genre. I have no idea why it sat on my TBR so long, but I'm glad it was there, and I actually think I would continue with the series if I saw the sequel at like a reasonable enough price. I'm very glad that I picked this one up. I'm now going to move on to Stephen King's Rose Matter, and I'll update you when I'm finished. Rose Matter by Stephen King. This book follows the main character, Rose. In the beginning of the novel, she escapes an abusive marriage. She takes the first bus she can find, pretty much, and she starts a life somewhere else. Eventually, her husband comes after her, and he's a psycho piece of shit, also a cop. King usually does supernatural horror, so it's kind of cool that this one was, for the most part, based on like a real life scenario. But then he did add in this really weird supernatural subplot where Rose buys this like bad piece of art at a thrift store, and then it starts coming alive in some ways, and eventually she like goes through it, and there's this whole weird scene that doesn't need to be there. I ended up giving this book 1 star. It actually put me in a reading slump for quite a while. I finished this book a while ago. I'm just coming down to talk about it because it took me a while to recover, to be honest. It was really boring. I wasn't interested, and then the supernatural element at first seemed kind of cool, but when it reached its climax, it was the weirdest, most confusing thing in the world. It was definitely based on Greek mythology somehow, but I don't understand how. I'm not familiar with that Greek myth or whatever the fuck it's based off of. I really hated that supernatural part. I don't really understand what it added to the story. It just felt like him trying to make the story more unique in some way, and I don't think it worked. I also really hated King devoting so much time to the abusive husband being like racist and homophobic. For some reason, Stephen King didn't understand that abusing your wife makes you enough of like a villain. We don't need him to say the N-word all the time. And it's just weird for a white author to make his white villain continuously say the N-word, especially when the book doesn't touch on the theme of race at all in any way. Like, it's just a white guy trying to say the N-word, and it was weird. And I get that maybe those were common in the 90s, but it's not okay. It doesn't add anything to the book, and I hated it. There's also a very weird, like, underlaying theme of the villain having gay tendencies, but also being very homophobic, and again, also saying, like, homophobic slurs. But then there are weird scenes where it's almost like he's hinting that he's trying to repress his, like, true gay identity. I don't know. I hated that as an aspect in a villain. Don't think it was necessary or added anything, and it just felt homophobic to have in there at all, to be honest. At the end of the day, it's just stupid. Like, he's an abusive cop. Both of those things alone tells me he's a bad guy. Going off of that as well, I wish that Stephen King had leaned in a bit more about the villain being a cop, because first of all, he did it like once or twice and it was great. Like, the main character was afraid of reporting her husband to the cops because all of his friends were cops, and she had known his friends, and his friends were equally as, like, creepy and gross. I wish there had been political commentary about police in our society in here. There definitely wasn't. It was just, like, a tactic to, like, make it obvious that he could track her down and also make her fear a little bit more justified, I guess. But think about how great it would have been if he had included social commentary about police in our society, especially given how prevalent domestic abuse is amongst police officers. I just personally wish he had considered adding more about that in here, but he didn't. It was just like a random detail for the most part that was thrown in. He didn't really play off of it much, which sucks. I just think overall, honestly, this is one of the worst Stephen King novels I've ever read, which sucks. I'm getting rid of this book. I don't want it in my life anymore. I guess I'm happy it's off my bookshelf, just so, you know, in the future, if I really wanted a Stephen King book, I didn't have to pick it up, but at the very least, I'm glad it's off my bookshelf now. I'm glad I have that in my past, and not my future. And now I'm off to read Prince of Mist. See you soon. My cat's joining me. Oh, she hates it. Okay. I have officially finished the last book. That is The Prince of Mist by Carlos Ruiz Zafón. Can't speak Spanish. I'm sorry about that last name, because I definitely butchered it. So this book, I didn't realize it going in, but it's actually like a middle grade novel. I thought it was going to be YA. It took a couple chapters for me to get used to the middle grade style, because obviously it's a lot more simplistic. Essentially, you're following a young boy named Max. Him and his family live in England, and they decide to move to like a very small town on the coast because war is about to start. It's World War II. I'm doing a really messy job already. Anyway, his dad uproots them. They move to this like small beach house, and upon arrival, they find out that 10 years ago, another family lived there and their son actually died in the house. And then all this spooky shit starts happening, which I'm not going to get into because that's kind of more of something you need to figure out as you read. So first impression, I actually didn't realize this was by the same author who wrote Shadow of the Wind, which is kind of cool. Apparently he started out writing YA and middle grade novels, and this was actually his first book. So that was really cool. I will say, I think this book was really unique. A lot of fun. Definitely something I would have loved in middle school to read. There's some fantastical elements to it, but it also reads a bit more like a horror. Like, I think this would really freak out middle grade kids. All in all, I had fun reading it. It was a really quick read for me too. It took me like a day. And I really appreciate like how unique the story is, given that it is a middle grade and that genre kind of has tropes. I've never really read anything like this before, so I think that's a huge mark in its favor. At the same time, my personal enjoyment was definitely affected by it being a middle grade. I haven't read a middle grade in so long because I am an adult. I know a lot of adults like middle grade, but it's just not something I gravitate towards. It's a little bit too simplistic and like kiddie-like for me personally. I ended up giving it 3 stars though, because again, like the uniqueness definitely plays into its favor. I thought it was a solid story. I am actually very glad to finally get this one off my shelf because I feel like it's been there forever and I haven't wanted to pick it up. All in all, I think this was a fun little challenge to do. I definitely get stuck in this place where I just pick up so many books, especially if they're cheap or free. I just acquire so many and then they're stuck on my bookshelves forever. And I never get to them because I just keep reading the new books instead. But I think I want to be more intentional with picking up the older books on my shelves as well to make sure I'm really actually going through them. And maybe like just make a habit of, for every new book I read an old book. Because like this has had some mixed results, because I'm gonna take significant points away for Rose Matter because that really affected my enjoyment of this little fun challenge. But other than that, like Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, that was a great read. This was also a very good read. Didn't find any new favorites, but I had fun along the way. So that's all for today, guys. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you soon with another video. Goodbye.